Warren Wells was the sort of player who may want to trade a recreation in a single play. He wasn't just fast. He changed into electrifying, an extensive receiver who should turn the ordinary into the amazing. For some brief years, he became one of the most risky deep threats within the NFL, lighting fixtures up defenses and giving the Oakland Raiders one of the maximum feared passing assaults inside the league. But just as quickly as he rose to stardom, his existence took a downward spiral that no one noticed coming. Wells' tale isn't just one among gridiron glory, however, of private demons, mistakes, and a sad fall from grace. Wells' time in the NFL became quick, yet it left an enduring impact on lovers, teammates, and the Raiders franchise. Many recollect him for his breathtaking velocity and large play capability. But as the cheers dwindled, Wells confronted demanding situations off the field that in the long run derailed his career and his existence. This is a story of skills and promise, however also one of personal struggle and a life reduced short via alternatives made in the warmness of pressure and condition. To really understand the tragedy of Warren Wells, you have to start by searching at what made him so wonderful on the field and how he got there inside the first area. From a small city in Texas to the intense lights of professional soccer, Wells had the world at his FT. However, his journey changed into something but smooth. His upward thrust and eventual fall would come to outline his legacy in approaches that went a long way beyond soccer. Early life and college career. Warren Wells changed into born on November 14, 1942 in Franklin, Louisiana. However, it became Texas that formed a great deal of his upbringing and his love for football. Growing up in the small city of Beaumont, Wells didn't have an awful lot. Like many young guys within the South at that time, football wasn't just a sport, it was a way out. Wells confirmed natural athleticism early on, excelling on the sector in which his pace and catching capability set him apart from his friends. Despite his obvious skills, Wells wasn't heavily recruited through important faculties. He ended up at Texas Southern University, a historically black university where he changed into capable of show off his competencies against some hard opposition. At Texas Southern, Wells proved he had the potential to make plays that maximum different receivers couldn't. He wasn't the biggest or the most powerful, but his pace became plain, and his knack for getting open downfield became his signature. While at Texas Southern, Wells developed a reputation as a deep danger, someone who ought to trade the momentum of a sport with the unmarried capture. His ability to stretch the sector caught the eye of scouts, even though Texas Southern wasn't one of the massive soccer powerhouses. Wells's performances didn't constantly include the media highlight, however, phrase started out to spread approximately his game-changing expertise. In 1964, Wells entered the NFL draft. He became selected through the Detroit Lions in the 12th spherical, a choose that many groups likely considered as an extended shot. But for Wells, it was the start of his professional football adventure. At this point, though, his road changed into a long way from clean. Despite his success in college, breaking into the NFL was going to be a mission. Entry into the NFL, Warren Wells' access into the NFL wasn't precisely a smooth trip. After being drafted through the Detroit Lions inside the 12th spherical of the 1964 NFL Draft, Wells Speedy found out that making it on the expert stage changed into a distinct type of undertaking. He got here into a league filled with gamers who had been larger, quicker, and more potent than what he had experienced in university, and the opposition for playing time was fierce. At first it appeared like Wells may not be able to find his footing. He spent his rookie year with the Lions, however, didn't make tons of an impact. In a crowded roster, he struggled to steady playing time, and as a result, he completed his first season with most effective modest stats to reveal for it. But it wasn't just the opposition that made his early profession rocky. Wells also confronted private challenges that interfered along with his capacity to focus fully on football. Rumors of off-area problems started to swirl, and it became clear that Wells began struggling with issues that went past the gridiron. In 1965, his professional profession hit a first-rate setback whilst he became dispatched to the Army after being drafted into Navy service. His time far from football further not on time his development as a player, and by the point he lower back, it turned into doubtful if he might ever fulfill the ability that many saw in him. Wells' profession could have without difficulty ended there, lost to the pressures of life off the sphere and a rough begin in the league. After his return from Navy service, the Lions released him, leaving him without a team and along with his destiny inside the NFL doubtful. For maximum players, this would have been the stop of the road, but Warren Wells wasn't ready to surrender. Despite being out of the league for 2 years, he stayed in form, hoping for any other shot. And that shot subsequently came while the Oakland Raiders, known for taking probabilities on proficient but players, decided to provide Wells an opportunity in 1967. It changed into a hazard that could change the whole thing. The Raiders have been the correct group for Wells. Under head coach John Rock and proprietor Al Davis that they had built an excessive powered offense that emphasized the deep ball, and Warren Wells' speed and capacity to stretch the sector made him an ideal match. It didn't take lengthy for him to make his presence felt. In his first full season with the Raiders in 1967, Wells have become one of the most dangerous receivers inside the league. His deep hazard potential turned into unmatched, and he quick evolved a strong connection with quarterback Daryle Lamonica, who loved to air it out downfield. Wells' breakout second got here inside the 1967 AFL Championship game, in which he helped lead the Raiders to a dominating victory over the Houston Oilers, securing their location in Super Bowl II. Although the Raiders lost to the Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl, Wells' performance had cemented him as a growing big name. Over the next few years, he would turn out to be one of the pinnacle receivers inside the league, main the AFL in receiving yards per season, and establishing himself as a key weapon within the Raiders' offense. But as Wells thrived on the sphere, his personal struggles continued to linger in the history. The equal off-subject troubles that had plagued him early in his career have been never absolutely resolved, and as his reputation grew, so did the stress. Wells' story became quickly turning into a story of lives, one in all achievement beneath the bright lighting of the NFL, and any other that changed into spiraling out of manage far away from the sector. At the peak of his fulfillment, Warren Wells changed into unstoppable, a participant who regarded destined for greatness. But the troubles he have been sporting for the reason that his early days in the league have been about to catch up with him, and his profession and life might quickly take a devastating turn. Resurgence with the Oakland Raiders. Warren Wells' pass to the Oakland Raiders was nothing brief of a rebirth for his soccer career. After years far away from the game, suffering to locate his area, the Raiders gave him the second threat he desperately needed. In 1967, Al Davis and the Raiders agency were recognized for taking dangers on players with stricken pasts, and in Wells, they saw something special, something that other teams had neglected. Davis believed in players who should stretch the sector and exchange the game with their pace and playmaking capacity, and Wells became the perfect match for the Raiders' vertical offense. Once in Oakland, Wells didn't waste any time making an impact. His velocity became a nightmare for defensive backs, and the Raiders' competitive passing assault allowed him to absolutely exhibit his abilities. Daryle Lamonica, the Raiders' quarterback, had one of the strongest hands inside the league, and he wasn't afraid to let it fly deep. Wells quick became his favorite goal, frequently beating defenders for lengthy touchdowns and big plays. In his first complete season with the Raiders, Wells have become the crew's primary deep hazard, supporting them win the AFL Championship, and in comes a trip to Super Bowl II. Though the Raiders in the end misplaced to the Green Bay Packers in that Super Bowl, Wells' performance that season positioned him at the map as one of the league's gold standard receivers. In 1968, he took his game to some other degree. That 12 months, Wells led the AFL with an remarkable 26.8 yards in keeping with trap, a testament to his capability to continuously get at the back of defenders and make explosive performs. His chemistry with LaMonica turned into simple, and the Raiders' passing recreation have become one of the most feared in soccer. Wells wasn't simply rapid, he had an instinct for locating the ball, tracking it through the air while defenders closed in on him. His capability to make big catches in crucial moments made him one of the maximum precious players on the Raiders' offense. One of his most iconic performances got here within the 1968 playoffs towards the Kansas City Chiefs, in which he stuck a game-prevailing touchdown in a hard-fought victory that helped the Raiders boost. That second cemented his repute as a take-hold-of participant, someone the Raiders could rely on when the sport became on the road. By 1969, Warren Wells changed into at the peak of his powers. He earned a Pro Bowl choice and completed the season with 1,260 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns, leading the AFL in each categories. His 20.5 yards in step with C's Common that year turned into similarly evidence of his sport-breaking pace and deep danger capacity. Wells had emerged as one of the maximum dangerous extensive receivers in soccer, a player who ought to take the top off any protection and flip the tide of a sport with an unmarried play. But even as Wells changed into soaring on the sector, his existence off the sector turned into a long way extra turbulent. Behind the scenes, Wells became struggling with non-public problems that had plagued him at some point of his profession. His conflict with alcoholism becoming greater mentioned, and legal troubles persevered to observe him. The Raiders, who had been recognized for supporting their gamers through tough times, attempted to assist Wells through these demanding situations. However, the pressures of repute and the spotlight made it tough for him to get away his demons. In the 1970 season, despite continuing to play at an excessive degree, the cracks in Wells's non-public lifestyles commenced to reveal. His legal troubles intensified, and his struggles with alcohol have become extra seen to those round him. For a while, it appeared like he might be able to control each his career and his off-field problems, but the weight of all of it became developing too heavy. The Raiders have been triumphing games, and Wells became nevertheless making large performs. However, the storm brewing in his personal lifestyles was approximately to hit with complete force. The Raiders had given Wells a threat to reclaim his soccer career, and for some wonderful seasons, he made the maximum of that possibility. But as his career hit its peak, the very issues that had as soon as threatened to give up his football dreams had been returned. And this time, they have been about to bring everything crashing down. Warren Wells was residing on borrowed time inside the NFL, and his downfall became looming simply over the horizon. Legal and personal struggles. Warren Wells's success on the field turned into undeniable, but off the field, his lifestyles became unraveling. Despite his first-rate performances for the Oakland Raiders, Wells struggled to preserve his personal demons in Take a Look At. His war with alcohol became a constant problem, and it wasn't long earlier than his felony issues began to overshadow his football achievements. For many, it was tough to reconcile the man who made amazing catches with the only who turned into coping with critical off-subject issues. But Wells's story became a painful reminder that non-public problems can deliver even the brightest stars crashing down. The first main incident that hinted at the troubles to come happened in 1969 when Wells became arrested for failing to pay toddler guide. It became a criminal trouble that might follow him for years, and one that hinted at the private problems Wells became going through away from the spotlight of the NFL. While he persevered to carry out at an excessive stage on the sector, those troubles began to mount, slowly chipping away at his stability. It became an increasing number of clear that the pressure of his non-public life was taking a toll on him, despite the fact that it hadn't absolutely caught up with his profession, but Wells' troubles with alcohol best made things worse. Teammates and coaches knew he had an ingesting hassle, and it had become tougher for the Raiders to ignore the warning signs and symptoms. Alcohol became a steady presence in his lifestyles, and it beginning to have an effect on his cognizance and behavior. In a time whilst there wasn't the equal degree of guide or understanding for addiction, Wells was largely left to deal with his problems on his very own. The Raiders tried to help him. However, it became a conflict that Wells couldn't seem to win. In 1971, his lifestyles took a major turn for the more severe. Wells changed into arrested all over again, this time on extra critical expenses. He turned into accused of attack with a deadly weapon, stemming from an altercation that passed off even as he changed into intoxicated. The arrest got here at the worst feasible time, simply as Wells's career became achieving its peak. The prison case dragged on, and the uncertainty round his future made it increasingly difficult for the Raiders to hold him at the group. His once promising career became now striking by means of a thread. The prices against Wells marked a turning point. While he were capable of bounce back from earlier setbacks, this time it felt distinctive. The NFL had little patience for off-field distractions, and notwithstanding his vast talent, the Raiders were beginning to lose religion in him. As the criminal case performed out, Wells's existence spiraled in addition out of manipulate. The guy who had as soon as been a key part of the Raiders' offense changed into now going through the very actual opportunity of dropping his profession altogether. Despite the Raiders' tries to assist him, Wells's struggles with alcohol and the regulation were too much to conquer. His arrest in 1971 led to his suspension from the NFL, correctly finishing his time with the Raiders. It changed into a heartbreaking fall for a player who had once been considered one of the maximum explosive receivers inside the league. Wells had long passed from the peak of fulfillment to the depths of personal failure, and there was no easy way lower back. For the Raiders, the loss of Wells became large. His departure left a void of their offense, and at the same time as the team persevered to locate fulfillment, they had been never quite capable of update his sport-converting capacity. For Wells, the cease of his NFL career turned into simply the beginning of a miles-longer war. His non-public demons had in the end stuck up with him, and his life after football could be described extra by using his struggles than by using his on-subject accomplishments. Warren Wells were given a couple of possibilities, each by means of the Raiders and by life, but the weight of his non-public problems became surely too heavy to bear. His story is a cautionary tale about the risks of letting non-public issues go unchecked, even inside the face of fantastic expertise. Career abruptly ends. Warren Wells's profession ended as unexpectedly as it had taken off. By 1971, his off-discipline troubles had overshadowed his on-subject brilliance, and the prison issues that have been constructing for years ultimately reached a breaking point. After his arrest on expenses of assault with a deadly weapon, the NFL had little desire but to suspend him indefinitely. It wasn't simply the felony troubles that triggered his downfall. Although Wells's ongoing battle with alcoholism made it difficult for him to stay focused and informed, or even with the assist of the Raiders, the situation spiraled out of manage. The suspension marked the abrupt stop of Wells' football profession. In a technology in which the NFL didn't offer the kind of aid for mental health and substance abuse that gamers can get admission to these days, Wells became left to cope with his issues in large part on his personal. The Raiders have been affected person with him for years. Knowledge that his expertise on the sector made him a precious asset. But while his legal problems escalated and his off-field behavior became impossible to ignore, even they needed to allow him go. Wells by no means played some other down within the NFL. His profession, which had as soon as seemed so complete of capacity, changed into over by the time he became simply 28 years antique. The most heartbreaking part changed into that Wells became nonetheless bodily able to gambling at an elite degree. He had the skills to hold dominating defenses for years. However, his personal troubles had ultimately stuck up with him. The identical man who had led the AFL in receiving yards and touchdowns just a few years in advance turned into now out of the league, his future uncertain. After his suspension, Wells's lifestyles took a dark flip. He struggled to discover a sense of root without football, and the felony battles that had ended his career persisted to weigh closely on him. His consuming worsened, and he discovered himself in and out of hassle with the law. For a man who had as soon as been on pinnacle of the soccer global, it became a tragic fall from grace. His go out from the game wasn't a retirement inside the conventional field. It became greater of an exile, a compelled departure from a profession he had once dominated. Despite his absence from the NFL, Wells remained a loved discern amongst Raiders fans. Many nonetheless remembered the pleasure he introduced to the crew at some point of his short time in Oakland. His ability to make recreation-changing plays turned into unrivaled, and for a quick period he became one of the maximum thrilling players in the sport. But as time exceeded, Wells became extra of a cautionary tale than a celebrated legend. His tale became a reminder of the risks of private struggles and the way they can derail even the most promising careers. For the Raiders, losing Wells became a big blow. While the crew persevered to perform nicely in the years that observed, they in no way without a doubt determined an alternative for his unique ability set. Wells have been a key part of their offensive identification, and his surprising departure left a hole that couldn't be stuffed. His chemistry with quarterback Darryl LaMonica have been a first-rate element inside the Raiders' fulfillment, and without Wells, the team's deep passing game wasn't pretty the same. Wells' career may additionally have been quick, however his impact on the game became simple. He finished his 4-year NFL career with 158 receptions for 3,634 yards and 42 touchdowns, mind-blowing numbers for a player whose time within the league turned into cut short. His common of 23 yards in keeping with C's stays one of the highest in NFL records, a testimony to his deep chance capacity and sport-breaking pace. But those numbers simplest tell a part of the story. The actual tragedy of Warren Wells is how quickly all of it slipped away. His career ended now not because of damage or age, but because of the picks he made off the sector. His existence have become a series of overlooked possibilities, a story of what could have been if simplest matters had gone in a different way. The unhappy truth turned into that Wells had all of the skills in the global, however his personal struggles in the end proved too much to conquer. Wells' fall from the NFL was rapid and irreversible. The guy who had pleased fanatics and tortured defenses with his velocity and athleticism turned into now out of the league, his profession and lifestyles in disarray. For Warren Wells, the sport had ended a long way too quickly. Life after football. After his soccer profession resulted in 1971, Warren Wells confronted an existence without the shape, fame, and camaraderie that the NFL had provided. What remained have been his non-public demons, generally his battle with alcoholism and the prison and financial problems that had built up over time. Wells had now not prepared for existence after soccer, and the transition from NFL star to normal citizen turned into jarring. For a man who were so celebrated on the sector, the absence of soccer left a void that became hard to fill. Wells' legal troubles continued to haunt him. He spent time in jail, and his existence became a sequence of court appearances, probation violations, and attempts to get his lifestyles back on the right track. In 1971, he became convicted of legal attack and served time in prison. These criminal battles, mixed with his persisted struggles with alcohol, stored him from locating the stableness he had to rebuild his life. What was once a promising career had now become a struggle for survival, with Wells fighting simply to live afloat. In the years following his soccer career, Wells moved in and out of rehabilitation programs in and tried to conquer his addiction. However, the fulfillment of these packages turned into restricted. Without the help gadget that football had provided him, Wells discovered it tough to live on the path to recuperation. His story became no longer specific. Many former NFL gamers from that generation confronted comparable struggles as they dealt with the pressures of reputation, injuries, and the dearth of assist for intellectual fitness and substance abuse problems. Wells' relationship with the Oakland Raiders remained a vibrant spot, though. Despite his issues, the Raiders' enterprise continued to reach out and provide assistance every time they could. Al Davis, the Raiders' owner, became recognized for status by way of his former gamers, and Wells turned into no exception. The group attempted to help him via his hard times, imparting assist and counseling on the way to get him lower back on his feet. Unfortunately, in spite of the Raiders' help, Wells became unable to completely flip his life around. As time passed, Wells became a forgotten determinant within the global of football. Younger fans didn't recognize his name, and his achievements have been overshadowed through his off-area problems. It was a sad evaluation to the distinction days whilst Wells were one of the maximum feared receivers in the sport. His brief, however incredible profession had been complete of promise. However, now, all that remained were recollections of what could have been. Wells spent plenty of the relaxation of his life in relative obscurity. Unlike a lot of his former teammates who transitioned into training, broadcasting, or different ventures, Wells struggled to find his place outdoor of soccer. His financial situation worsened, and he confronted the demanding situations of living with the long-time period effects of alcohol abuse. The fame that had once surrounded him had faded, and Wells turned into left to navigate a hard and lonely road. One of the few shiny spots in Wells' later life changed into his eventual sobriety. Though it took years and many failed tries, Wells turned into able to sooner or later conquer his addiction inside the past due 1980s. By then, the damage had been accomplished, each physically and emotionally, but Wells discovered peace in his later years. He spent a great deal of his time far from the spotlight, dwelling a quiet existence as he attempted to make amends with the beyond. Despite the hardships he persisted after football, Warren Wells' legacy remains alive inside the hearts of Raiders fans and NFL historians who keep in mind his short but superb profession. His tale, whilst tragic, serves as a reminder of the importance of intellectual health and help for athletes, each in the course of and after their careers. Wells's life after soccer changed into a hard bankruptcy, marked through private struggles and missed possibilities, but his contributions to the game will no longer be forgotten. Warren Wells passed away on January 27, 2018, at the age of 76. His death marked the cease of an existence full of each triumph and tragedy. Though his time inside the NFL turned into short, his effect became big, and his tale serves as each a cautionary story and a reminder of the fleeting nature of achievement in professional sports activities. Wells may have been forgotten with the aid of a few, but to folks that noticed him play, he'll constantly be remembered as one of the most electrifying extensive receivers in Raiders records. Warren Wells's legacy. Warren Wells may not be a household call like different NFL legends. However, his impact on the game, particularly in the course of his brief tenure with the Oakland Raiders, is undeniable. Though his career became marred by using off-field troubles and got here to an abrupt end, Wells's performance on the sector left an enduring legacy, specifically amongst Raiders lovers and football historians who understand the intensity of his skills. Wells embodied the traditional deep danger receiver, a participant whose pace and capability to make explosive performs described the vertical offense of the Raiders in the overdue 1960s. In just 4 short seasons, Wells completed what many players could best dream of over a decade-long career. His knack for stretching the sphere and making sport-changing performs earned him the popularity of one of the most feared extensive receivers in the league. Even though his time in the NFL became short, his average of 23 yards in keeping with capture over his profession still stands as one of the maximum in NFL records. an incredible feat that speaks to his capability to make massive plays always. Wells' chemistry with Raiders quarterback Darryl LaMonica was in particular unique. Together, they had been a really perfect pairing for the Raiders' competitive passing recreation, revolutionizing the group's offense with their deep connections. Wells wasn't just catching brief passes and going for walks. He turned into burning defenders for 40- and 50-yard profits, frequently for touchdowns. At his top, he led the AFL in receiving yards and touchdowns, making him one of the most exciting gamers to watch inside the league. Fans would come to video games knowing that Wells had the potential to change the outcome with simply one catch. Yet as vibrant as his famous person shone, Wells's legacy is also a story of unrealized ability. Many marvel what he should have accomplished had he been able to retain his profession without the prison and personal problems that led to his early exit. His natural capability, mixed with the Raiders' machine, could have easily made him one of the greatest huge receivers in NFL records. Instead, his call is frequently referred to with the experience of what could have been, an untapped capability that was never completely realized because of circumstances past the soccer discipline. Warren Wells' story also serves as a cautionary story for destined generations of athletes. His lifestyles after football was a tough adventure marked by struggles with addiction, criminal problems, and financial hardship. It's a reminder of the demanding situations that athletes face after they step far from the highlight. Wells' lack of ability to address the pressures of fame and his non-public problems confirmed simply how fragile a professional sports profession may be, especially for folks who lack the aid systems which are more well-known in nowadays' recreation. Despite his personal struggles, Wells has remained a cherished parent in Raiders records. His name nevertheless resonates with die-tough fanatics who don't forget his recreation-breaking ability and the exhilaration he introduced to the group all through its AFL dominance. The Raiders Corporation has endured to honor his contributions, with former players and fans alike paying tribute to the velocity and ability that made him this kind of unique participant. The larger NFL community, too, has started out to reflect on Wells's legacy in latest years. As attention around intellectual health, dependency, and the personal challenges that athletes face has grown, Wells's tale has taken on a new significance. His upward push and fall function, a reminder that in the back of each athlete's on-area success, there may be non-public struggles that frequently move unseen. His tale highlights the importance of imparting assist and assets to gamers, each for the duration of and after their careers. In the give-up, Warren Wells' legacy is a complex one. On one hand, he changed into an immensely proficient receiver who may want to take over a game with his pace and playmaking potential. On the opposite, his personal demons cut his profession short and left him struggling for the rest of his life. But for folks who watched him play, Wells will constantly be remembered for the flashes of brilliance he brought to the sector, moments that still live on in Raiders lore. His career may additionally have been quick, but his effect on the game of soccer will by no means be forgotten. Wells' tale isn't pretty much what he misplaced. It's additionally about what he gave to the game of soccer. His legacy, whilst tragic, is also one in all triumph, however fleeting. In his short time with the Raiders, he made an indelible mark on the franchise and the sport, and his story continues to serve as a critical mirrored image at the intersection of athletic prowess and personal vulnerability. Even a long time after his very last snap, Warren Wells stays a participant who left behind a complicated, however unforgettable legacy in NFL history. Lessons from Wells' story. Warren Wells' tale is more than only a tale of football greatness reduced quick via private struggles. It's a sobering reminder of the challenges that athletes face both on and rancid the field. His upward push to stardom and subsequent downfall offer valuable lessons for players, groups, and enthusiasts about the significance of mental health, private responsibility, and the delicate nature of success in expert sports activities. One of the key training from Wells's story is that expertise by myself isn't sufficient to maintain a successful profession. Wells had all the athletic gifts a receiver ought to ask for: pace, agility, and first-rate hands. He was able to outrun defenders and make outstanding plays on the field that few others could replicate. However, no quantity of expertise could protect him from the results of terrible decisions and private troubles. Wells' downfall highlights the importance of retaining balance in life, mainly for athletes whose lives are below consistent scrutiny. His case indicates that private nicely being is simply as essential as professional overall performance. Another essential lesson is the significance of assist systems, each at some stage in and after an athlete's career. In Wells's generation, there wasn't the same level of attention about intellectual fitness or the lengthy term effects of dependency. Players often had to face their demons alone, without the sort of expert help that's available today. Wells's struggles with alcohol had been well known, but there was little in the way of formal help or intervention to help him deal with his troubles. Today, groups and the NFL provide a good deal greater sturdy mental fitness and addiction guide packages for players, but Wells's story reminds us of the dangers of ignoring these wishes. Wells's tale also serves as a cautionary story about the fleeting nature of fulfillment in expert sports activities. One day, Wells became on pinnacle of the Football International, making highlight reel catches and main the league in receiving. The subsequent, he changed into out of the game, his career cut brief by private and prison issues. It's a stark reminder that a profession in expert sports may be incredibly fragile, and the window of opportunity for athletes is often a lot smaller than it appears. No count how proficient a player can be, off-field issues can derail even the maximum promising careers. His tale is also a reminder of the function that non-public accountability plays in an athlete's life. While there have been in reality outside elements that contributed to Wells' struggles, lack of aid, the pressures of fame, he, in the long run, had managed over his actions. His selections, especially concerning alcohol and his legal problems, performed a prime role in his downfall. Athletes these days can learn from Wells's tale that even as the pressure of expert sports may be overwhelming, private duty is essential to long-term fulfillment and properly being. For fanatics, Warren Wells's lifestyles teaches us to see athletes as extra than simply the highlights we see on sport day. Behind each extraordinary play is a person dealing with their personal challenges, and occasionally those challenges may be overwhelming. It's clean to have a look at a person like Wells and cognizance best on his shortcomings, his off-discipline issues, his felony issues, but it's critical to don't forget the overall picture. Wells changed into a man or woman with exceptional expertise who turned into additionally handling personal battles. His legacy should now not just be about his errors, however additionally about the triumphs he completed in spite of those challenges. Additionally, Wells's tale is a testament to the long-term consequences of ignoring mental health and addiction. Had Wells received the guide he needed earlier in his life, possibly his profession and life would have observed a one-of-a-kind course. His story has helped spark conversations about the importance of worrying for athletes past their bodily talents, and it's a reminder that the pressures of professional sports can take a heavy toll on a character's intellectual and emotional fitness. Finally, Warren Wells' journey serves as an instance for future generations of gamers approximately the significance of making plans for lifestyles after football. Too many athletes, like Wells, are caught unprepared for the transition out of the game. Whether due to sudden injury, private issues, or genuinely the herbal end of a career, every participant will face the day once they grasp up their cleats for true. For Wells, the quit of his career came far too soon, and he wasn't prepared for what came next. His story indicates how important it's for athletes to have a plan for their submit playing days, whether or not that means pursuing schooling, building economic safety, or looking for private increase. In The Quit, Warren Wells's tale is full of classes for players, groups, and lovers alike. It's a tale approximately triumph and tragedy, expertise and turmoil, however, most significantly, it's a tale approximately the complexities of lifestyles as an expert athlete. Wells might not have had the long, storied career that many anticipated. However, his legacy continues to educate precious instructions to folks who come after him. His existence, both on and stale the sector, gives a lasting mirrored image at the stability among non-public struggles and professional success, and the significance of addressing both with a purpose to gain authentic greatness. Conclusion. Warren Wells's tale is one among brilliance, tragedy, and mirrored image. His upward push to stardom within the NFL becomes swift and stunning, marked by using awesome performances that left lovers in awe and defenses scrambling. As one of the most electrifying huge receivers of his time, Wells redefined what it's supposed to be a deep-risk player, bringing speed, agility, and large play capacity to each recreation. Yet for all his fulfillment on the field, Wells' tale will constantly be intertwined with the personal struggles that subsequently overshadowed his career. Wells' adventure is a reminder of the highs and lows that come with the pursuit of athletic greatness. On the one hand, he showed what was viable whilst natural skills met possibility. Despite being a latecomer to expert soccer, Wells quickly have become a key piece in one of the AFL's maximum dominant offenses. His reference to quarterback Darryl LaMonica and his capacity to stretch the field helped the Raiders come to be one of the most feared groups in the league. On the other hand, Wells's fall from grace serves as a stark reminder of the pressures athletes face each on and stale the sector. His legal issues, battles with addiction, and absence of assist eventually led to the abrupt cease of his career, robbing him of the danger to absolutely realize his capability. His story is a cautionary tale about the importance of personal obligation, mental fitness, and the want for help structures for athletes dealing with challenges past the game. While Warren Wells's call won't be as outstanding in NFL records as a number of his contemporaries, his legacy stays extensive. His achievements on the sector nonetheless stand out, with facts that retain to highlight his extremely good capabilities. He was a trailblazer in the vertical passing sport, and his effect at the Raiders franchise and the wider football community is simple. For lovers of the game, Wells is remembered as a participant who added excitement and electricity to the field every time he stepped on it. Wells's tale also leaves us with vital classes about how we view athletes. It's smooth to recognition on their on-field achievements and neglect that they're people with their personal struggles. Warren Wells become now not just an exceptional football player, he becomes someone dealing with personal demons that ultimately took over his existence. His story encourages us to remember the whole image, to recollect that the athletes we cheer for are also human beings, with all of the complexities and vulnerabilities that include that. Though Warren Wells' time inside the NFL was cut short, his legacy lives on as each an inspiring and cautionary tale. His capability to convert the Raiders' offense along with his deep hazard playmaking will in no way be forgotten with the aid of people who watched him in his top. At the same time, his private struggles and the challenges he faced after football highlight the importance of addressing intellectual health, addiction, and the need for ongoing aid for athletes. In The Quit, Warren Wells's tale serves as a reflection on the fleeting nature of achievement and the importance of balance in lifestyles. He became a player who done high-quality heights, however additionally faced terrific adversity. His legacy is not pretty much what he achieved on the sector, but also approximately the lessons his life gives to destiny generations of athletes. Wells may additionally now not be with us. However, his effect on the game of soccer and the cautionary information his life affords will hold to resonate for future years.